Today likes interaction, and our group likes to be interactive. So please raise your hands along the way if you have any questions that come up. We will also be monitoring the chat line. So if you are attending via webinar, please type your chat in there and we'll address the question as quickly as we can. All right, so today's speaker is a seasoned HR professional with over 25 years of experience and a deep expertise in all things HR. Her experience in DISC assessments, performance management, executive coaching, and emotional intelligence training enhances her ability to lead and develop high-performing teams. It's my pleasure to introduce Tarsha Rogers.
Thank you, Jody, so much. And yes, she is right. I do expect a little interaction. It's not going to just be me up here talking. So, how many people in this room have had to have a difficult conversation with an employee? All right. So most of the room. It's not easy. So what we're going to talk about today is how you actually need to navigate those conversations and the documentation that goes along with it. Because if you don't document, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So we're going to talk about that. So again, what we're going to cover, writing and keeping clear, defensible records, navigating those difficult conversations, and building a culture of accountability, fairness, and trust. So this is where the interaction comes in. What would you do? You supervise an employee who's been showing up 10 to 15 minutes late several times a week. You've noticed it, but haven't said anything yet. Today, they arrived late again. And a coworker quietly mentioned it's becoming disruptive. What would you do? Anybody? Yes, in the back. Mm-hmm. Okay, we got another hand up in the back. Awesome, great answers. And you mentioned impact, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, because impact is very important. Oh, did we have another? Laura, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. And that's important too, as well, because when your employees kind of witness that you're not doing anything about things, or they feel like you're not doing anything about things, now you're creating somewhat of a bad culture, low employee morale, which can lead to a toxic work environment. So we want to avoid that too. Yeah, right. So let's start with some hard truths. California is one of the most litigious states as it relates to employment law. Yeah. Laura's like, go California. And so what that means is it's very, very important to document. You want to document everything from your verbal conversations, of course, your written warnings, and we're going to talk about that later. You want to document what's going on, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to defend yourself in court. The judge is going to be, where's your documentation? You're not going to have it. If an attorney reaches out to get documentation on an employee that they're representing, you want to make sure you have all that. And then the attorney that you have to represent you, they're going to want to see where's the documentation. So you want to make sure you're heavily documented. Employee lawsuits, oftentimes they hinge on missing records, and those missing records start adding up to money and more money and more money for that employee. So, and as I also mentioned earlier too, that when you mishandle the documentation or you mishandle these important conversations, it does lead to low morale. As Laura mentioned, you want to go back to that employee that maybe brought it to your attention about what so-and-so is coming in late, and let them know, hey, thank you for that. And I'm going to look into that and take care of it. All right, so documentation that defends. As I mentioned earlier, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. No documentation, no defense. And it also shows inconsistencies. So if you're documenting, you're showing your other employees that you're being fair, that you're being consistent, that you care. And we're going to talk about later that you don't want, I see this all the time with managers, they wait until they've had enough to start documenting when you really should have been documenting from day one. Don't wait until you've had it up to here and then you're coming to me, hey, I want to let this person go. First thing I'm going to say is, where's your documentation? So you want to make sure that you do have that. When you have these conversations, they need to be factual. You need to stick to the facts. You don't want to go in with an employee emotionally charged and going off your emotions. Oh, you have a bad attitude. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. You need to have facts when you have these conversations, because again, it's not only going to help the employee, but should this turn into a claim letter later on, it's also going to help you too as the employer. So what does the documentation look like? So again, you want to focus on the factual behavior. The document should be about observable actions that have actually occurred, not assumptions, not personality traits. We don't care that they have a bad attitude. What did that attitude cause in terms of behavior? You want to include key details on this documentation. Always note the dates, the times, witnesses, the employee's response. You want to get that. It should be an interaction and not just you kind of barking at them what they did wrong, but you want to get their response because maybe there's a good reason for whatever happened. So here's an example. On March 15th at 9:05 a.m., employee arrived 15 minutes late. When asked, employee stated they overslept. Supervisor Jane was present. That is a detailed documentation that will go into your file on that employee of what actually happened. So now we're going to move into the SBI model, which was something that was mentioned a few minutes ago. S stands for situation, B for behavior, and I for impact. So when we talk about the situation, it's describing the context, the date, the time, the location, kind of setting the tone of what went on. The behavior is what that employee did or said. Again, fact-based. And then the impact, as the young lady in the back mentioned, how did this affect the team? You're coming in late every day, puts more work on other people. That's impacting the team. So here's an impact example. During the March 2nd team meeting situation, the employee interrupted the presenter and made dismissive comments, behavior, which disrupted the meeting and discouraged the team from further participation. That's the impact. So when you're having these meetings, you want to make sure you use this SBI model because it's going to stick to the facts. All right. So here's a real world rewrite from vague to what would actually be considered defensible. So a vague statement, employee has had a bad attitude and doesn't get along with others. What can anybody tell me what's wrong with that? Aside from it being vague, what else is wrong with that statement? Yes. Yeah, it's kind of more emotional. It's not factual. It lacks, like you said, the specifics. What do you mean by a bad attitude? And a conversation like that could end up being combative between you and that employee because now it's more of a confrontation as opposed to coaching. It doesn't describe any observable behavior. And it would not hold up in court. You cannot walk into court and say, we terminated her because she has a bad attitude. The judge is going to say, what does that mean? So What should be said instead? And this is using the SBI model. On April the 10th, during the 9 a.m. team meeting situation, the employee interrupted two coworkers mid-sentence and their eyes rolled and said, "That's a stupid idea," behavior. This caused the discussion to stall and made it difficult for others to contribute. Of course, that's the impact. So again, why is this important? Because you're sticking to the facts. You're not coming in with your personal emotions or what you feel. You're sticking to the facts. You're including the clear behavior that does need improving, and it's not based on anyone's emotions. So now let's get into navigating those difficult conversations. So why are these talks avoided? Can anybody in the room tell me why they may avoid having a difficult conversation with their employee? It's uncomfortable. Yes. Got it. No worries. So in the room, someone said that it is uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable to have because you don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know how they're going to react. You don't know if they're going to take this as something positive or if it's going to immediately go left. And we're going to talk about kind of key things to say if it does start to go left. So definitely fear of being confrontational. Concerns about saying the wrong thing, something they could be having a bad day. And now here you come with this conversation and you've triggered them. But avoiding it is not the answer because it might make you feel comfortable right now, but that's temporary. It's only going to make things worse. The behavior is going to continue. And then you've got other employees that are looking like, what's going on? Why they're not doing anything about this? Which goes back to your culture and what type of culture you want in your workplace and not having that toxic environment. So when you're preparing for these conversations, again, know those facts, have your ducks lined up and ready. You want to set the tone. You are in control. So you want to make sure that you set a positive tone. So this can be a positive, interactive conversation. And then you want to choose the right setting. You don't want to be somewhere where you're constantly getting phone calls or people are coming in. You want to maybe go to a conference room, go somewhere quiet and have this conversation. Because again, you also want to hear what this employee has to say. That's very important. You want to listen actively. You don't want to listen so you can respond. You really want to hear what they have to say. And again, I'm going to say it more than once all through this. You want to stick to the facts. Stay on track. So during the conversation, again, listening actively, you're sticking to the facts and you're staying on track. And we're going to use a model called the FACT model. So the F stands for frame it, which means you're going to set the tone by stating the purpose calmly and professionally. I wanted to talk today because I've noticed a pattern I think we need to address. And then the A stands for ask. Invite the employee into the conversation to share their perspective. Can you help me understand exactly what's going on here? Then you move into the C, which is clarify. State specific observations using facts, again, not opinion. So I've noticed you've been more than 10 minutes late 3 times this week. This affects shift coverage and can create stress for the rest of the team. And then again, that's that impact. And then you move into T for transition, which is let's talk about what support you might need and how we can move forward from here. So you definitely, when you're concluding these meetings, you definitely want to ask, how do we move forward? What can we do? Let them be a part of creating the solution. So when you're starting the conversation, you may want to say, I want to connect with you about something I've noticed lately that's impacting everyone on the team. This might be a little uncomfortable, but I think it's important we talk about it openly. So again, you're setting that tone of you want this to be friendly. You don't want this to go left. But it can go left. So then that's where you need to course correct. And it means just that, get them back on course. And you want to shift the conversation so that it goes back to the facts, because they may want to start talking about something that has nothing to do about the meeting. Well, you didn't let me go on vacation a month ago. None of that has anything to do with what we're talking about here. So you want to stay the course, but you want to acknowledge their emotions. If they're starting to get uncomfortable, if they're starting to feel, like they're being confronted, you want to acknowledge how they're feeling, but don't stick to it. Don't stay there. Just acknowledge it and keep going. I understand this is frustrating. Can we focus on the specific behavior so we can find a mutual solution? Again, you're redirecting to the behavior. If it's still going a little left, let's take a step back. And, so everyone can kind of pause, reset. And this is a way of de-escalating, because again, you're coaching, you're not confronting, you're coaching so this employee can improve, and you're not coaching to punish. So that's very important. But again, doing this is definitely, you're going to build alignment with this employee. You're going to build trust, because, sometimes employees don't know they're doing things wrong. So if you never say anything, that's a disservice to them. All right. So documentation, again, it's coaching, not catching. A lot of times when I do have managers come to me where they're ready to let someone go and I'm asking for that documentation, now all of a sudden they're trying to find all the documentation they can that's going to support that termination. And I'm like, that's not the attitude that we need to take, because that in itself creates a toxic work environment when you're known as that manager that's just looking to get rid of people. And yeah, you're documenting, but you're documenting because you want to catch somebody. You want to coach to improve, not to punish. So you want to set clear expectations. You want to track progress and identify patterns. You want to support the employee with the coaching and the structure. And you always want to demonstrate fairness and due process should an issue escalate. Think of documentation as a coaching playbook, not a punishment log. You're not keeping a log of how you're going to get this employee. So creating a culture of accountability. Building a fair and accountable workplace starts with consistent expectations and clear communication and thoughtful documentation. It's not just about correcting behavior. It's about cultivating trust, integrity, and that legal protection should sometime down the road this turn into a claim. So I want to give a scenario of sometimes we have those innate skills, like maybe attention to detail. I'm not that strong on attention to detail. However, it's something that I do work on because with my job, I do need to have it. So let's say we have Supervisor Mary, who manages John and Jane. John and Jane are both good employees. However, Jane is a little bit more stronger when it comes to that attention to detail. So Mary, the supervisor, is always giving Jane all of the good projects, all of the more challenging projects. She's happy with John, but he doesn't have the attention to detail. But she never, ever, 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 ever tells John that his attention to detail is a problem. What do you guys think about that? Is that a problem that she never says anything and she gives all the projects to Jane? Okay, the room is agreeing. I'm sure you guys online are agreeing. That is a problem, because even though attention to detail is one of those innate skills that some people are born with, others like me are not, it is something that you can develop. It is something that you can work on. So the best thing you could do for John is say, hey, I know you may have an interest in some of the things that Jane does, but we got to work on your attention to detail. So let's learn how to focus a little more, and maybe I can send you to some classes that focus on attention to detail. And, let's get that up so that we can start giving you some of the challenging things that Jane works on. And again, that's building trust, that's showing your employees that they do matter and you do want them to be happy and satisfied within their work. So the little things that maybe they can't do, tell them. Don't not tell them and then don't give them something because that doesn't work for their personality. Work with them, coach them, develop them. That's when you're a manager and a leader. I was often told when you sit high, you pay high. So when you're leading people, you've got to step up and you've got to coach them and develop them, because what you want in the end is success. So let's talk about progressive discipline. Now, this can be different in various organizations, depending upon what's in your handbook, your culture. But typically in California, it is a good idea to go through this process. So you're going to start with a verbal warning. Now, this verbal warning is just kind of, let me sit down with Hajar and have a conversation about why she's coming in late every day. Not something Hajar doesn't need to sign anything. There's no paper involved. However, I am going to document that on July 16th, I had a conversation with Hajar about coming in late, and that's going to be put away. Okay, another week or so goes by, Hajar's late again. So it's a little bit more egregious. So now I feel I need to write Hajar up. So we're going to have that meeting. We're going to have that meeting. I can pick on Hajar. We're going to have that meeting, and it's going to be more of a formal document. And I'm going to give it to her to sign. I'm going to give it to her to respond should she not agree with it. And we're going to really talk about it. And we're going to talk about what can we do to improve you coming in on time. Do you need a shift change? What's going on? I think someone mentioned earlier, it has a bus route change. Really trying to, you've got a write-up now. We need to get to the bottom of what's going on. Hajar doesn't have to sign it. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Hajar is still coming in late. So now it's time for a final warning. Or some people do a suspension. I usually save suspensions for when we need to investigate or look further into something, or sometimes a suspension might be used if you kind of know you're going to turn, but you need to get the ducks in a row. You need to get checks because you cannot turn without check in hand. So final warning now, you cannot be late anymore. And that's put in writing. It's given to Hajar. The expectation is for her to sign it. Again, she doesn't have to. Okay, it's happened again with no excuse. Oh, I just overslept. Okay, well, now it might be time to move to termination. So you see where the progressive discipline is very important, because it gives that employee a chance to try to turn it around. You had a verbal, you had a written, you did a final, and you gave them those chances. You had those conversations and it's still not working. So maybe now it could be time to move to termination. Understanding PIPs. So PIPs can also be used in the whole form of progressive discipline. And a lot of times PIPs are used more specifically for that performance. So maybe there's no behavioral issues, but they're just not working up to par. So a PIP is a performance improvement plan, a formal document that outlines performance issues and makes a way for there to be improvement. So in this PIP, you want to define what success looks like in this particular role. And you want to let them know that this is what they need to aim for and give them a deadline of when they need to be actually doing these things that are in the PIP. But you do want to create a document that's a plan for success for that employee. Again, we're coaching to improve, not to punish. You want to support that employee. And if a claim arises, having that PIP definitely will look well in court, because it's going to show the courts that we did try with this employee. We let them know your performance is not up to par, and here's an outline of where we need you to be and by what time, and they still didn't make the cut. It also shows fairness, consistency. And it, again, we talked about trust. It builds trust and credibility among other team members because other team members are noticing it too. But if they feel like you are trying to do something about it, then you're not suddenly creating this toxic work environment. So when progressive discipline may not apply, harassment or violence, theft or fraud, willful insubordination. Oh, I'm not doing that. Or severe safety violations. Those are incidences when, you can skip all and just jump to straight. This isn't working out. We're going to have to let you go. So let's talk about acknowledgement versus agreement. So when you have that document, be it a PIP or a written warning, you just want the employee to sign acknowledging they received it. They're not signing acknowledging that they agree with it. So a lot of employees, I have to always explain this. I'm not signing that. Okay, fine. You don't have to sign it. You're not signing saying that you agree. And there's usually a section on the document that where the employee can actually write, I don't agree with this. And they can state what they want to put down, what they feel actually happened. But they're signing acknowledging that this conversation took place and that this did indeed happen, and you're acknowledging that you received this document. I also like to share with employees that I will get calls from EDD, and sometimes they will ask for documentation of what went on with this employee, what led up to the termination. And when they see a bunch of things that are not signed, they will tell me, we're not going to approve this claim because they didn't sign anything. So I try to tell employees, go ahead and sign it, because again, you're just acknowledging, you're not agreeing. So all of these things we're talking about, the difficult conversations, the documentation, it is all tied to trust between you and your employees, as well as a strong legal defense should anything occur. You're showing that employees are treated fairly and they're being informed at every step. Your expectations for them are being clearly communicated. Your organization is showing that they prioritize accountability for everyone and integrity. And again, in litigious California, what Laura loves, it shows that you took a reasonable step in a case that could possibly lead to PAGA. And we're going to talk about PAGA claims briefly. So what is PAGA? PAGA stands for Private Attorneys General Act. It allows employees to sue for labor code violations on behalf of the state, themselves, and for others that were working there during that time frame of the violation. The penalties are huge. You want to avoid PAGAs. We have other trainings and seminars that talk about timekeeping, missed punches, and all of those things, and not keeping good timekeeping records, and making sure non-exempt employees are taking their meal breaks. That's a whole separate topic, but those are usually what the PAGA claims are about. And so you don't want to be in a PAGA claim. So again, documentation though is very, very important. So what does all this fairness that we've talked about, what does that look like in practice? It means you're applying your policies consistently. Same expectations and consequences for all employees. You're helping to prevent claims of favoritism or bias. You are allowing time and tools for that employee to improve. Again, you're coaching for improvement. You're being fair. You're documenting when the expectations were clarified, and you're giving that employee support. And when you do these things, when you document everything, everyone wins. It's, again, not just for discipline, it's positive reinforcement. And you also want to check in when they're doing well. They shouldn't just hear from you when things are bad. Hey, you're doing a good job. Acknowledge the improvement. And remember, documenting is not just for discipline. You want to show the positive things and show development with this employee. So what are some key takeaways for today? Fair and timely documentation protects both the employee and the employer. It helps people grow, and when necessary, it helps leadership make defensible decisions. When documentation is done well, it protects the company. But more important, it protects the employee's opportunity to be able to succeed, which is what really everybody wants in the end. It creates a shared record, helps eliminate any guesswork, and shows that leadership is acting with transparency and fairness. Questions? Yes, Laura. Yes. So the question is for those online, she wants to know what would the logistics be with a meeting with an employee, who would be in the meeting, what time of day. So I tend to think that later in the afternoon, if possible. Now, I do have clients I work with where people are on different shifts, so we have to do it in the morning. Sometimes these conversations, if you do it first thing in the morning, it kind of wrecks that person's day and you're not going to get good production out of them. So I think it's better to do them in the afternoon. When you ask about who should be present, there should be another manager present, maybe HR or another manager. And I tell you why. Should the conversation go left, there's only two people in that room. So it's your word against them. And they can say that you said a whole lot of things that you did not say. But if there's two people in that room, that one of which is going to support you as a leader, then it kind of squelches all of that. And that also can be documented, that you're in the room along with other supervisors, so-and-so, or with HR. Well, I think there was another part to your question. What time of day? Where? I would go somewhere kind of away so that everybody's not seeing if it's in a closed door office, if it's in a conference room. If you have a balcony and you want to go out on the balcony and talk to what's just somewhere where there's not eyes like, oh, what's going on with her? So that everybody feels comfortable. Any other questions? Yes. Mm. That's a great question. So for those online, the question is, what is the time frame of going through progressive discipline? So for example, an employee is late today, but then they're not late again for 3 or 4 months. Me as an HR professional, if it's not that close together, I probably will start again with another verbal because that I'm very compassionate when it comes to things like that. If it's something more egregious, then I might jump now to the written because we talked about this a month ago. But something like being late, I would say, hey, is there another situation that has come up? Is there something I need to help you with? Do we need to talk about your schedule? What's going on? And remember, and I would definitely remind that employee, we had a conversation about this a couple of months ago. So we want to make sure we stay on top of being at work on time. Does that answer kind of? Yeah, so it's kind of up to you. If you feel like it's egregious enough to where it warrants that written warning from maybe a couple of months ago of the verbal, but if not, maybe just another verbal conversation. There have been situations where I've done more than one verbal, and then now I'm finally moving into the written. Yes, Monica. So Monica said that also in tips, you would put that in the documentation that this could lead to further disciplinary action up to and including termination. Yes, Jim. It is allowable if you can recollect things that have happened, if you can remember dates, things of that nature, because again, you want to have facts. So you want to make sure that if you're trying to remember what happened back in January, that somehow you know the exact date that that happened and exactly what occurred, then yes, you can go back and start your documentation. Yes. Follow up with that employee and document it in an email, or is it just in a document where you kind of outline the facts? Great question. So for the verbal, so the question was, if you're having that conversation, do you follow up with an email? Absolutely, especially if it's a verbal. Because if it's written, it's there in black and white. But if you're just sitting down having a conversation, then yeah, you go back to your desk, just follow up that we talked about X, Y, Z, blah, 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 and you send that email to the employee. Absolutely. Yes. I deal with this daily. And this is why it's key the minute it starts is to have that conversation. Because if you do wait, you waited a week, you may have waited a month, and now this employee, this problem employee now is coming to you about their own complaint. And then as HR, I always tell managers, we got to take a step back because it can be viewed as retaliation. So that again, you want to do the conversations as soon as things occur, just so that you can get it out there already that there's a problem with them before they can come to you with what their problem is. Yes, Laura. Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Mhm. Yes. Right. Yes. I do get that often, and I go by California law on that. If all, oh, the question is, how do I deal with an employee who wants to record the meeting? So I will deal with it like I would deal with any conversation being recorded in California. If all parties are okay with it, I have no problems with it. If someone's not okay with it, we cannot record because all parties in California must be okay with being recorded. Any other questions? Oh, and let me tell you what Laura made as her comment. It's important. So with Jim's earlier question about going back in time and actually documenting, you don't want to make it look like you actually did it back in that time. You want to just include it as something that did happen in the past in the conversation. And if you can't remember dates, leave it out because you're not going to look very credible if you're wrong. So it might be best just to start from today. I'm going to document this person starting from, I heard this seminar, I'm going to start today, as opposed to trying to go way back, because that might get you into some legal trouble. Yes, Jim. Mm-hmm. So that is going to be something that has to be set from that individual organization, what they deem excessive, because with every organization, it's going to be different. And I would recommend that your HR department or your management team, that they do specify in that handbook what they deem to be excessive absences. Because for some companies, it's 3 occurrences. For other companies, it could be 5 or 6 occurrences. For some, it could be 1. So that's going to be something that that particular organization will have to determine what they would want to be considered excessive, and they have to apply it across the board with everyone consistently. That's the most important thing. Thank you for your question, Brandon. Any other questions? I do want to let everyone know that New Level Resources, we have all of the forms that were mentioned. We do have those forms should you need them for documenting the written warnings, the PIPs. We do all of those things. And we're asking that you would also follow us on our website and on LinkedIn. And I would ask, as a board member of VAC, I would like for you to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, because we do have a lot of good topics that we like to share. And I thank you all for your attention.
That great presentation, Marsha. All right, as we come to a quick close, you probably can't hear me, all right. As we come to a quick close, please do take the yellow evals from the center of your tables and fill those out. We're always looking to improve. We would really appreciate your feedback. Any topics that you would like to hear, please put those on there as well, and we'll be sure to address that. All right, I would like to invite Laura back up for our program announcement.
Thank you. Me again. Sorry. That was one of the most practical, well thought out presentations on this topic I've ever heard. That you gave some fantastic advice. Terrific. So in my free time, I am the programs chair here for the EAC. And that means that it's my responsibility to find phenomenal presenters like we just had. So let me share what we have coming up for the rest of the year. Next month in August, we have Danielle Gotcher of Global Immigration Partners. She's going to be presenting on immigration issues under the Trump administration. Huge topic right now. Please be here for that. In September, we have Janice Miller of Miller Haga Law Group, who will be talking about civility in the workplace. In October, we have Deanna Ball on employee engagement. And then November, we have our annual half-day presentation from John Light of Light Gabler, who will do our employment law update. I am always looking for great presenters and topics. If you know of someone, if you have a topic you just really want to hear about, put it on your evaluation or reach out to me. I really want to know. Members get access to all of our presentations via our membership portal. If you're not a member, you can always just reach out to the speaker directly for a copy of their presentation if you want it. Another fantastic event we have coming up is next week, a week from today. We have a social event on July 23rd. It's going to be right here in the bar next door. It is happy hour. It's free for members, $15 if you're not a member. That gets you a drink ticket and some appetizers and an opportunity to come network with other professionals and enjoy some drinks after work. There's information on our website. Please sign up. We'd love to see you at our social next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And next, I'd like to ask Jim Nagy from Sprocket website to join me for our Tech Minute.
Thank you, Jody. I want to just take a minute and talk a little bit about AI. It's something that's on everybody's mind. It's no longer a future initiative. It's already reshaping how HR, legal, and business leaders manage risk, people, and processes. Tools like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or others are being quietly embedded into the platforms that your teams already use. So from recruiting systems to document generation to all different kinds of things. And that's an opportunity, but there's also a risk. I'm seeing innovative teams use AI to accelerate compliance reviews, write internal policies, even guide employee conversations. But I'm also seeing organizations caught off guard by inaccurate outputs, biased language, and even accidental confidentiality breaches, because no one asked who's reviewing what AI is creating. So here's the takeaway. AI is here. Your team is probably already using it. And even if you didn't greenlight it, the question isn't if your organization should use AI, it's are you using it well or mindlessly? So the best leaders aren't afraid of AI. You want to set guardrails and then accelerate. And if you have any questions about AI or any topics around that, please let me know. I'm always happy to talk.
Thanks so much, Jim. All right, anyone tracking your HRCI SHRM credits, please let us know. Sharon Martin, raise your hand. See Sharon, she'll give them to you. She'll make sure you're taken care of. And those of you who have joined us via Zoom, you can hit reply to your confirmation email, and we'll make sure you get those as well. Tarsha, I'm gonna need some help up here. It's just for our raffle. All right, so everybody was here to join us for our networking, which was super, super fun. If you are here in time to join us for our networking, you get 2 raffle tickets with admission. If you are here to join us just for our program, you get 1. So today we the first prize is for next week's summer social or next month's program free attendance.
All right.
871003.
871003. I know you're here. All right, well, we're going to try again.
801005.
005. Congratulations. The next prize is donated by Crossroads Staffing. It is one of my absolute favorite white wines, Whitehaven Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. And the secret sauce to this wine is the water.
All right.
871037.
I really. All right, congratulations. Thank you guys all so much for joining us here today. Next month, if you're kind of like, should I go in person? Should I come go online? Come on in, join us, have some breakfast, have some, enjoy the networking and have some fun free raffle prizes at the end. Thank you so much. Hope to see you all next week and then again next month as well. Thank you so much.